Great start to the season for Max Verstappen at the Bahrain Grand Prix. We can speak live now to the former world champion, Damon Hill. Morning to you, Damon. An ominous start then from Red Bull. Should everyone else just pack up and go home?
Well, that would be a shame, wouldn't it? I think there was some very forlorn-looking team bosses down the pits there because it was a case of, they just cleaned up. They disappeared into the distance. You couldn't really, you'd be forgiven for watching for a long time and not knowing who was in the lead because poor old Max was out there doing his business half a minute up the road, and the rest of them were tripping over themselves, with the exception, of course, of Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, which was really, for me, the winner of the race. I mean, he put on the show. He put a fantastic dice on with Lewis Hamilton. So there was some action there and got the crowd on their feet, apparently. So I wasn't there, but I'll be in Saudi Arabia.
On Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin, how special was it actually seeing him capable of competing at the front in a car with them? And do you think he can really push Red Bull for the title this season?
Well, I think that might be a stretch too far. I mean, they've exceeded everyone's expectations. They certainly exceeded mine, and they've probably exceeded their own. So they're very, very delighted at the moment. They put together, Lawrence Stroll has put together, and he's put his money where his mouth is, and he's put together this team. And I think everyone thought, come on, Lawrence, you're going to lose a lot of money here. This is, you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. But he's proved everyone wrong. He's put together this team. He's put together the car. They've got Dan Fallows, who is ex-Red Bull. He knows a thing or two about what Red Bull are up to. So there's a little bit of insider, but they certainly won't be getting any help from Red Bull from now on. But a great performance and actually overshadowed the Mercedes team. Poor old Lewis and George Russell. I mean, this was a race that Toto described as his worst day in motor racing. I mean, they were humiliated. They were beaten by a customer car.
Just to stay with Fernando Alonso, Damon, it always seems that when you watch former world champions race, he's cut such a frustrated figure at times in recent seasons that I always like it when they then get back into a better car and he just seems smile on his face and he's enjoying life a lot more again.
Are you talking about, sorry, it cut out a little bit. Was that Lewis you're talking about there?
Alonso, sorry.
It was Lewis, yeah?
No, Alonso. I was just talking about Alonso and how much he seems,
yes.
How frustrated he's looked in recent years. And yesterday, the smile was back for a former world champion.
Yeah, well, the view of Fernando was he kind of used to foul his nest a little bit when he went from one team to another, and he's got a trail of kind of rather destroyed people behind him, and so his reputation didn't help him, and he's sort of zagged when he should have zigged, but he certainly zagged the right way this time with Aston Martin, and so the joy was very self-evident. But the guy is a master. I mean, he's a master of understanding a race. He's a master of competing. He seems to stay out of trouble. He picks people off in the race, and also he's brilliant with his comments. He knows exactly what to say to rub salt into the wounds if he has to. I think every racing driver looks at him and goes, "Now there's a very formidable competitor."
Damon, let's carry on talking about Mercedes then, with Toto Wolff saying, one of the worst days in racing with radical changes needing to be made. Were you surprised by those comments, especially after only one race?
Yes, it does seem a little bit early in the day, but then the thing is they came out with this kind of very different looking car to everyone else's last year. And the question was, well, that's different. Why has everyone else gone a different way to them? And then throughout the year, they persisted with the car, which was what they call porpoising and bouncing up and down aerodynamically, and they had terrible trouble trying to fix it. They even got the regulations changed a little bit on safety grounds so that the cars were raised up another 1.5 centimeters, and that hasn't helped them, it appears. So maybe there's fundamentally something wrong with their direction that they've gone in. If that's the case, then they've got a real problem, because with the cost caps involved in Formula One now, they can't just go back to the factory and spend a lot of money and redesign a car, because that would also imply they'd have to abandon what they think they know and go and follow others who have gone in a different direction, and they don't have any information on all of that. They don't have the wind tunnel knowledge. So bit of a problem now for Mercedes. They might have to just plug on with what they've got and prove everyone wrong with their design.
Well, it was interesting that you said that, Damon, because I think Lewis Hamilton earlier in the race weekend was asked about that, and he said, no, we don't have the option to just chuck this away and do something different. So what do? They just rely on the brilliance of Hamilton to try and get them up the grid a bit?
Yeah, I think, you can be as brilliant as you like. Unfortunately, the car does provide you with the opportunity of getting to the front. You need the thing that gets you into the same bracket as the guys who are leading the championship, and that's Red Bull. I mean, it was... Christian Horner said it was a superb race. Actually, it wasn't a superb race. It was a superb performance. It's a demonstration. There was no racing going on at the front at all. They had no competition. They're miles up the road. They were half a minute up the road, and they weren't even pushing. So, that's the level of the gap. The gap is probably bigger now than it was last year. And that's a real cold shower for everyone.
Damon, do you think Mercedes have kind of written off the season already then?
I don't think so. No, I don't think they've not written it off, but they are now faced with the reality, because in testing you can get an idea and you think you might be close, and even up to free practice 3. So right until the moment where things they weren't showing their hand, it was only in the final few moments of qualifying that you saw the fundamental gap in performance at 0.6 of a second plus possibly to Mercedes. And in a race, of course, that grows every lap. And you end up with a huge gap to find. And they have restrictions now. They don't have the same amount of ability to just pour resources in and do an arms race type development program. They'll have to go twice as fast as their competing team to catch up. That's the nature of development in Formula One. So they know that the task ahead of them, it's huge, and it's all got to be done in the factory, and they're going to have to really have some inspiration or work doubly hard to get back to the front, and that just gets them to the front. That's not even accounting for Red Bull's potential to improve.
Just a final one then, Damon. You said there were a lot of demoralised people in that paddock yesterday because of how Red Bull won that opening race. 2 weeks between now and Saudi Arabia. Can anything be done to close the gap between then? And is the track in Saudi Arabia anything that can maybe, again, concertina everyone a little bit closer together?
Well, that's the big hope, is that Bahrain is a kind of outlier type of circuit. It's very abrasive, a lot of tyre degradation. So it could be that we're just judging everything on this one track, because all the testing was done there as well. Saudi Arabia, yes, a very different type of circuit, much smoother, much faster, blind corners. It's a real challenge, and a driver can extract a little bit more time. It's possible they can close the gap as we go through the season, going to different circuits. Things do change. There's always opportunities with different circuits, maybe different weather conditions as well, although we're unlikely to get rain in Saudi Arabia. But, it can change, but that is based on just a pure test of Bahrain. They know the gap is there. There's not much they can do between now and Saudi Arabia in 2 weeks, but they will be going through all the data. It may be they can find something, but they have this saying in motor racing, which is if the car is quick out of the box, that's it. And I'm sorry to say, I think that is probably the truth for this season.
Damon, great to get your insight and knowledge this morning. Thanks so much for coming on.
All right, thank you.
Well, as we mentioned, Formula One continues in 2 weeks' time as they head to Saudi Arabia. You can catch all of the live action over on Sky Sports F1.